great to worship with you. How many of you appreciate the worship team? It's great to have Mele back on winter break, but the worship team just for leading us in just this time of worship is so awesome. We appreciate them. Last weekend was our Kingdom Builders Legacy Offering, and we just talked about giving towards that legacy. You saw the building update as our building is being built. The roof is now going on, so we're so excited for that. Keep that in prayer and pray for sun. I mean, that takes faith. So pray for Sun and Hilo so they can keep putting the roof on. When the roof's on, they get the walls going on the inside. But when you look on your seat, we do have these Kingdom Builder cards for people, just not your name, just your faith promise. You can put an amount between you and the Lord. Turn one in, keep one to remind you. But as last Sunday, we had over, I think, $111,000 that people pledged and that people have given over the next 12 months. So I want to say thank you for doing that. But I still know there's others that can get involved and do that. So if you're here and you're a guest, no pressure. But if Arise your church, we're telling everyone in our church, get involved, do something as we give to this. Our Kingdom Builders is not just the building, but we're feeding the homeless today. That's people giving to Kingdom Builders. The backpack drive, that's Kingdom Builders. So all of our kingdom things on the outside, we have the opportunity to give generously. We're going to sow even into the church that I preached the message at last weekend. We're going to sow even into them, but let's all be a part of what God is doing here at Arise. Well, we're going to start a series over the next couple of weeks entitled Joy to the World. Look at your neighbor and say joy. Hopefully they smiled when they said that. We all need a little bit more. Does that make sense? We're in Hawaii, you know what I mean. We need more joy. The world's been crazy. You look at what you turn on the TV, you turn on the news. We need more joy in the world. And the truth of the matter is that even though it's Christmas and we think it's a joyful time, for some it isn't. For some, it's sad. For some, they feel sorrow and they're reminded. That's why we have those cards that we were handing out, the Something Special cards, where you can take that. And I want to say thank you because we had 500 of them. And as of first service, there were only 40 left. And that was a card to take it, do something for someone, buy them coffee, pay for their lunch, do something generous, and just give them that card. And it said something special to let you know that God loves you. And it was just a reminder. We've had so many people whose lives have been blessed because of that. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't, grab one of those if there's any left and be a blessing. But we need to be reminded today that we need to have joy. Whether life is good or whether life is bad, we can have joy. Happiness can always change. Things make you happy, things make you sad. Circumstances can do that. We were swimming. I remember last year we were going over to the other side to swim a lot when everything was shut down, and we were at Queen's Bath. And I remember as we were there was a mom with her son, and we saw her there a couple of times right at that little pond. But the boy was so funny. He'd be having a good time. He'd be having fun. He'd be sitting there on the side. And whenever somebody would jump in and he'd get splashed with water, that boy would go from happy to angry like this. And he's sitting there playing, having fun. And I remember one kid jumped in, he got splashed, and he immediately looks at the kid and he just goes, "I hate my life. Hate my life." And this happened multiple times. We saw him a couple of times. And I'm trying not to laugh, right? I look at the mom just goes like that, right? And he was just angry like that. And we kind of laugh at that. But how many of us, even as adults, we let circumstances affect us like that? I hate my life. It's horrible. It sucks. What am I even trying? When things change. Because then we're living really according to happiness. The joy of the Lord is something that's just underlying every narrative of our life. The joy of the Lord is there in the good times and the bad times, when we're happy and when we're sad. That sad, it's not wrong to be sad. It's an emotion that we experience. In fact, the Bible says, mourn with those who mourn. And at times we're going to feel sad. I love that movie Inside Out. I don't know if you ever saw that. And in that movie Inside Out, it's one of my most favorite movies because sadness thought she was the problem. And they realized sadness was important. Why? Because everyone rallied when they felt sadness. And I think about the body of Christ. That's how we're supposed to be. When people are rejoicing, we can rejoice with them. But when people are sad, we can cry with them too. But even in the moments when we may cry and we may feel sorrow in life, the joy of the Lord is our strength. The joy of the Lord can still be in our life. In 2018, we went on a trip and we went to Japan. And while we were there, my parents actually came with us on this trip. And I was speaking at one church. My dad and the rest of the family were at another church. And we were supposed to meet up on the Shinkansen, the bullet train. And we were going to go up north on that Sunday afternoon up to Hakodate for the first time. And so we're getting on the train. And I'm coming from one place, they're coming from another place. So we don't know where we are. The train, if you've never been on a train, it's long. I mean, it's massive. And so I'm somewhere, they're somewhere. I couldn't get a reserved seat. So when I got on the train, I had to stand up. There's the door area where you put the luggage and the bathrooms. And for 3.5 hours, I had to stand up in the luggage place with other people who didn't have seats. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty miserable. Every time people are coming in and out, you'd have to get in, get out. Sometimes you had to help people take their bag or put their bag up. And I was just standing there. And after doing 2 services that morning at that church, walking all the way on the train and getting there, I was miserable, leaning on the walls like, when is this going to be over? But you may wonder, how could you endure it? Well, it was because I knew the train ride wasn't the destination. Once I had to do a flight a couple of years ago, and this was a long flight. We're meeting family. We're meeting our family in LA. It was actually Pastor Mike and his daughter, and we were flying from Auckland all the way to Los Angeles. 12 hours and 15 minutes in coach. You say, wow, you must love flying. No, I hated it. It's miserable, stuffed in there, making sure your leg doesn't go numb and just trying to survive the flight. You say, why would you do that flight? I didn't fly that 12 hours and 15 minutes because I like flying for 12 hours and 15 minutes. It's because I knew I was going somewhere. I was going to see my family on the other side. And when I think about our lives today, when it comes to the joy of the Lord, if we don't begin to get an eternal perspective in our life, we'll easily get discouraged. You see, the ride wasn't what it was all about. I endured the train ride because I knew I was going to be in Hakodate. I was going to get to eat some good food at the fish market. Come on. I miss Japan. We talk about Japan all the time. Man, we were going to eat some good food. I was going to see my family. I endured because it wasn't the destination. It was just simply the ride. And when I think about our lives today on earth, it's amazing what we can endure when the moment, what's at the moment isn't what we're focused on, but where we're going is what we're focused on. You realize that we are all, if you give your life to Jesus, I shouldn't assume, but if we've given our life to Jesus today, we are citizens of heaven. Earth is not our home. This isn't our final destination. There's somewhere that we're heading to. And even though life may get tough, it may be uncomfortable at times, you're thinking this is taking longer than I thought, and it's not as pleasant as I thought it was going to be. Just hang on because we're going somewhere. 2 Corinthians 4:16 says, that is why we never give up. Look at your neighbor and say, never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long. Yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. See, our time here on earth isn't the end. We're just on the journey. We're on a journey. Whether you're in first class or you're in last class. You ever been on the plane and you're like, I wonder what they're eating up there? Whether you're on first class or you're in last class, guess what? You all get off at the same place. Whether you're rich or poor, heaven is for you. Whether you're educated or uneducated, heaven is for you. No matter what your background is, heaven is for you. We may not all be in the same seat. We may not all be experiencing the same things, but let me tell you, we're all heading to the same place. Don't get stuck. Don't let your gaze be fixed on what's happening here. Get your focus on heaven. Amen. You see, to live joyful lives, number one, we need an eternal perspective. An eternal perspective. If we're just focused on the here and now, we're going to give up. If we're focused on the here and now, we won't want to press on. But when we know that heaven is our home, we'll keep going. 2 Corinthians 5:6 says, so we are always confident, even though we know that as long as we live in these bodies, we are not at home with the Lord. You see, as long as we live in these bodies, I always like to think of, our bodies here. You know what this is? Just like an astronaut that goes into space, puts on a spacesuit. Do you know that our spirits need to have an earth suit to stay here on the earth? Someone put it this way. Remember Men in Black? Remember the movie when the guy's face opened up and there's like the little Martian inside? Orion is the guy. And he dies, right? Because the suit was broken. Really, you think about it, our bodies, this isn't the real us. The real us is on the inside. We're spirit beings. We're spirit beings. We're spirit beings. These bodies are our earth suits that one day these bodies are going to break. One day they're going to die. When we die, what happens? Our bodies will release our spirits and we enter into either an eternity in heaven or an eternity in hell. And our hope at Arise is that everyone decides, it's your choice, that you decide to make heaven your home. Paul says as long as we're in these bodies, we're not at home with the Lord. One day we will be at home with the Lord. He says, for we live by believing and not by seeing. Yes, we are fully confident, and we would rather be away from these bodies, for then we'll be at home with the Lord. So whether we are here in this body or away from this body, our goal is to please Him. For we must all stand before Christ to be judged. We will each receive whatever we deserve for the good or evil we have done in this earthly body. Know that we are on a journey. We are heading somewhere. Heaven will be our home. When life is difficult, feel joy. Feel joy because there's somewhere better. You know that in life or in death, we have victory. To be here, living on earth, wonderful. When we die, what happens? We go to be with the Lord, wonderful. Whether we're sick, whether we're healthy, in death or in life, there is joy today. See the big picture. Look with eternal eyes. John Sophorik, in his book, The Wealthy Gardener, was talking about challenges in life. We can get so dismayed by challenges that happen on the journey. He says, I learned that a useful life was a challenging life, and a battle-ready mindset was critical to win every day. He went on by saying, continuous effort, not strength or intelligence, is the key to unlocking our potential. You know, when challenges come in life, don't give up. When challenges come, don't be quick to throw in the towel. Look with eternal eyes. Keep pressing on. Heaven is our home. Like Nehemiah 8:10 says, the joy of the Lord is my strength. I love that line, the joy of the Lord. It doesn't say the joy of Blaine is my strength, right? It doesn't say the joy of MJ is my strength. I'm glad because I'm sure at times they don't feel joyful. You know, for you, it's not the joy of Evan is your strength. It's the joy of the Lord. So no matter what happens in your life, how many know there's joy in the Lord? When you're down, there's joy in the Lord. And people will think you're crazy. People will think, how can you feel joy even in times like this? Because our joy isn't dependent on our circumstances. It's dependent on the Lord. And so the joy of the Lord is our strength. But here's the second thing when it comes to joy. We have to guard our joy. Why do we have to guard our joy? Because there's a lot of things out there that want to steal your joy. Circumstances want to steal your joy. The devil would love to steal your joy. Habakkuk says in Habakkuk 3:17, even though the fig trees have no blossom, and there are no grapes on the vines, even though the olive crop fails, and the fields lie empty and barren, even though the flocks die in the fields, and the cattle barns are empty. Really, in modern day translation, what is he saying? Even when the cupboards rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the God of my salvation. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes me as sure-footed as a deer, able to tread upon the heights. I love that scripture. He lays out, even though these things happen, what does he say? He's not simply going to endure the trials of life. He is going to rejoice. He is going to press forward in it. He's going to be joyful and overcome. You know, no matter what your circumstances are today, you can feel joy. I would almost say this: we don't have no excuse not to feel joy. You can't buy joy. Joy isn't found in material things. It's not found in good circumstances. Joy is found in a person, and that person is the Lord. It's found in the Lord, that even in the storms of life, we can smile. Even when the world says we shouldn't feel no hope, we can hope and believe for greater things. But we got to guard that joy. You see, circumstances don't bring us joy, but circumstances can steal the joy from our life. At times, how many know your wife can steal your joy? Your husband can steal your joy. Your kids can steal your joy. Your boss could steal your joy. You guys are trained well. I'm like, your wife could steal. Everyone's quiet. First service, people talking back, but people can steal our joy if we're not careful. And we got to make our mind, we're going to guard that. We're going to guard that. We're not going to drop down to that lowest common denominator. We're going to guard our joy. How many of you know, knowing that just listening to this message this week, you're probably going to be tested? Your joy is going to be tested. Someone will cut you off. Somebody will cut in line at the store. Come on. You know what steals my joy? When someone has 14 items in the 10-item lane when they're in front of me. I'm that guy. I count the stuff in your cart. I'm that guy. There are things that want to steal our joy. When I was I think I was around the fifth grade, the fourth grade, we were part of a church. My dad wasn't pastoring the church, but he was actually going to preach on that Sunday. We had Sunday morning church and we had Sunday night church. And so my dad was preaching at the Sunday night service. Well, our routine after church was we would go home and we would take a nap because we had church at night. That was our Sunday routine. We were going to take a nap. Now, as a kid, I always loved taking naps. I wasn't the kid who didn't want to sleep. I was like, take a nap. I'm like, now? Okay. I mean, I took a nap. In kindergarten, I would crash. I mean, I loved taking naps. Sometimes there were moments when I would wake up in life thinking, boy, I'm going to take a good nap today. I mean, literally, naps. And we got home. We had to take a nap. And so I went into my room. Here I am, about fourth grade. I went to take a nap. Now, my mistake was I locked the door. I locked the door, and I fell into a deep sleep, like Snow White sleep. Deep sleep. And I'm usually not a deep sleeper. I fell into the deepest sleep. And when it was time for us to get ready, my dad knocks on the door, tells me to wake up, no response. Then he goes to open the door, and the door is locked. So how many know what happens to dad? Blood pressure begins to rise. And for whatever reason, my dad didn't know that you could just pop the lock. You know how now you can pop the lock? He didn't know that. So now he's yelling for me to wake up. I don't hear a thing. I am knocked out. Pounding the door. I don't hear a thing. I am knocked out. He goes outside and he looks in my room. The window is open and he can see me asleep on the bed. And literally he said, this is what he thought. He's faking it. He is faking this. And so he starts yelling at me through the screen to wake up. I don't even move. I don't even budge. And he's thinking to himself, oh, he's really just trying to get on my nerves. So now he goes into the house. He's fuming. He gets the spray bottle. You know the spray bottle? We had one with water we would use to brush our hair. He gets the spray bottle. He turns that thing so it's a beam. And he starts shooting that water through the screen into my face, yelling at me to wake up. And I'm laying there, and I can remember feeling water. And I was, like I said, I was in the deepest sleep, and I wake up, and he's yelling at me, get ready, we gotta go to church, right? And he's angry, and he's upset, and I'm getting up. And he says the moment he realized that I was really asleep was when I got up, and I grabbed my underwear, and I began to just put my underwear on over my clothes. And he goes, oh my gosh, he's felt so bad. You say, why is that? Was because he was supposed to preach that night and his message was on joy. And he let his joy be stolen at that moment. You know, if we don't guard our joy, it's amazing. The smallest things can steal our joy. The smallest things can turn us the wrong way. It could be one word that people says, one comment that they say, and then people are upset. People are angry. It ruins it all for everybody in your life. We got to guard the joy. This week, can we make up our mind to guard our joy? Even if something horrible happens, we're going to guard our joy. Why do we do that? We guard it. So here's number 3. Here's the last one, so that we can always be full of joy. Now that's easier said than done. But this is what I've come to realize. Joy is a choice. It's a choice. And next weekend, I'm going to share with you a story. It's a crazy story of joy, of how we had to, my dad and I on a trip, how we needed to implement joy in our life. But Philippians 4:4 says, always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Wasn't he clear on that? Always be full of joy in the Lord. He didn't say be full of joy when things go your way. Be full of joy when everyone's nice to you. No. He said, always be full of joy. This is Paul. And he repeats it, rejoice. Be full of joy, rejoice. Let everyone see that you are considerate in all you do. Remember, the Lord is coming soon. You know, Paul had inner joy in his life. When you read what he wrote, he always reminded the believers to be full of joy. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that many of the epistles that the Apostle Paul wrote, do you realize that he wrote them while he was in chains in a prison cell? As a prisoner in Rome, he would write things encouraging people to be full of joy, to not give up, to keep pressing on. Even when he was presented with imprisonment, torture, and even death. There was a pastor by the name of Richard Wurmbrand, and he was imprisoned in probably the late 1940s, early 1950s in communist Romania. One thing that you will see as you study history, when you have socialistic parties, communist ideals in a country, it's anti-God. These are atheistic beliefs. And you see that even in America today, where these socialist ideas want to rise up, and I tell you, that's something we need to stand against. It's anti-God. It's anti-God. In the communist Romania, they wanted him to deny Jesus. He was preaching. They wanted him to deny Christ, and he refused to do so. They took him. They threw him into prison for 8.5 years. 3 of those years, he was in complete solitary confinement in a cell that was 12 feet underground. 12 feet underground, in the dark, for 3 years. No interaction. Even the guard, they said the guards would put felt under their footsteps so that he couldn't hear a thing. He was totally alone. Yet he refused to deny Christ. After 8.5 years, they let him out. And guess what he did? He started preaching again, going into the underground church. And he preached. They threw him back in prison. This time, he received physical torture. They mutilated his body. They burned him. They would throw him into freezer boxes for hours. They would beat the bottom of his feet until it would bleed and the skin would fall off. They'd give him a break, and then they'd beat his feet until it reached the bones. Excruciating torture. When he was released and came to the United States, he went before a Senate committee where he removed his shirt to show the scars that he borne for Christ. And yet it was Richard Wurmbrand who said this: "The living Jesus will give you joy amid tribulation." You know, it's one thing for us to say it, but for this person who suffered for Christ, he realized that there was joy no matter what he faced in his life. He went on to say, "I have found truly jubilant Christians only in the Bible, in the underground church, and in prison." I read that. I said, God, forgive me. Sometimes we got it so easy. We let little things mess us up. We got it so easy. We get our feelings hurt. I'm not going to go to church anymore. I'm going to go to a different place. I'm going to go there. And you got people that are facing life and death. I mean, when you're facing life and death, you get a whole different perspective of what life is supposed to be. He understood what the joy of the Lord was. And he committed the rest of his life to helping pastors in persecuted countries, where even those nations tried to kill him. They death threats against him constantly. It wasn't going to stop what he was going to do. And he understood with joy. And I would hope that we as a church, that we grow thick skin. You know, I believe that true disciple of Christ is thick skin. Thick skin. That we let our joy be evident. There's going to be things that at times we're not going to be happy with. We're not going to like. But are we going to be so petty in our life that we let the joy of the Lord leave us? We let people just rub us the wrong way and we leave? Or can we persevere? In his book, Victorious Faith, I love this quote. Richard Wurmbrand said, "There was once a fiddler who played so beautifully that everybody danced. A deaf man who could not hear the music considered them all insane. Those who are with Jesus in suffering hear this music to which other men are deaf. They dance and do not care if they're considered insane." There's a joy today that you and I can have that the world doesn't understand. And at times they're going to think we're crazy. But I'll encourage us, family, come on, let the joy of the Lord, even when everyone in the world says we shouldn't feel this way, let the joy of the Lord be our strength. Amen. Close your eyes with me today. Father, I pray that the joy of the Lord, let it just rest in this place. Lord, there may be some that maybe came in heavy-hearted, some that are just so focused on the journey. They're so focused at where they are right now. They lost sight of eternity. They lost sight of what you have ahead of us, the destination that you're taking us to. Lord, in the good times, we want your joy. In the bad times, we want your joy. In health and sickness, we can have your joy. In abundance and poverty, we can have your joy. When we don't know what tomorrow holds, we can have your joy in Jesus' name. Lord, I'm believing in hearts here today, Lord, that there's some that you're just wanting to change the way they see things, change the way they view things, to experience, Lord, just a fresh breath from heaven. You know, we talked about it earlier. There's an eternity. It's not here on earth. There's an eternity for every one of us. It's either heaven or hell. We don't decide after we die. We decide now. God's given you this moment. The Bible says with our mouth we confess, with our hearts we believe that Jesus Christ is Lord and He rose from the grave. And if you've never asked Jesus into your heart, if you've never surrendered your life to Him, this is your moment. If you're watching with us online, this is your moment this morning to confess Him in your life. And I would love for us to just say this simple prayer. This prayer that aligns with the decision you're making in your heart right now to surrender your life to Jesus. We don't go to heaven because we give in an offering, or we go to church, or we read our Bible, or we pray every day. We go because of Jesus. He is the only way. And if you're here this morning, say this prayer. In fact, church, can we all join with those who are saying this prayer, those that are online saying this prayer with us? Say, Heavenly Father, thank you for sending Jesus to the cross. I believe Jesus died for me. I also believe that He rose from the dead. He's alive in me today. Thank you for loving me. Let your joy be my strength. In Jesus' name. And we all said, amen and amen. Come on and just thank the Lord this morning.